Hey, welcome to Y'all With Me. Today we have special guest Tyler Nylund, Pastor Tyler Nylund, and he's going to tell us about his testimony, how he came to the Lord, and what his journey has been like. So, Tyler, it's really good to have you.
Yes, I feel honored to be here, and I just whatever brings glory to God, I'm all in.
I know you are. Tyler, we've known each other for, I don't even know how long it's been. Do you? Like
I would say about
10,
13 years.
13? Oh, wow. Look how time flies. Yeah, and I remember back when we first met, it was actually at a campus life event. Do you remember that?
I do.
And you were a volunteer, if I remember correctly, for an all night, like a lock in.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you just wanted to talk about the Lord. I remember that. And I remember prophesying about your wife that night, the
yeah,
first time we met. And anyway, I don't know if that was the wife, but you definitely have a wife. Would you
yeah,
like to tell us a little bit about your family?
yeah. So we have four kids. Two of them are bonus, and two of them are biological. Uh, we're very blessed. They're 8, 6, 3, and 1. Um, as you can imagine, it keeps us on our toes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's exciting, and just seeing them grow and develop naturally, physically, spiritually. You, I feel like I see a lot in all four in different ways, even my own self, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's almost able to. There's like this benefit of being able to give back into in the areas where maybe I wasn't able to be refined and developed and disciplined for the better purpose, for their purpose. It's really it's like a second chance from my childhood growing up. So that's
So you're doing for them what you didn't feel like was necessarily done for you.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
good way of putting it.
yeah. And you know things that your parents or that generation didn't know specifically because you know Jesus. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so they clearly, your folks had a heart for the Lord, obviously, or a heart for children, I should say. Um, yeah, heart for children, and you've just taken it up a notch.
That would be a good way of putting it. I definitely inherited a heart for children. My parents did foster care. We had 33 kids total throughout the time that they had their foster care license, and then my sister we eventually adopted. So they had a big heart for children. Um, as they weren't perfect parents by any means, but would say it this way: they probably did the best they knew how with what they had.
Sure.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Amen. So I'm going to use one of my favorite words. It's heathen. I just love the sound of it. I just think it's the funniest sounding word. Uh, Tell us about what your history was. You clearly ended up in a crisis point where you ultimately met Christ. But what was life like before Christ, and how do you think you even got to the darkest spot?
uh, that's a great question. The reality of where my life was, it was I guess a good word to describe it would be depravity. Um, while at the same time thinking that it was gonna get better, that if it's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. If once you get there, that of this imaginary thing that you never really get there, it's gonna bring the fulfillment. And what I looking back, hindsight's 2020. I see that the closer I got to this imaginary pot of gold, the worse life became. The more stressed out I became, the more my friends became enemies because of jealousy, and difficult things of that nature. So it was very it was I was depraved, and I didn't see it until the Lord revealed it. He helped me to see what I couldn't see, and I'm very grateful for that.
So you were depraved, and I believe it. Do you want to help us understand exactly what that looked like for you? It's different. I mean, there's only so many, areas that the enemy will draw all of us into, usually of some sort of codependency or addiction or depression or whatever. What was your vice? Where did you head?
So, in the scriptures, I think it's in Timothy, it talks about the love of money is the root of all evil. And I can testify that is absolutely the truth. And that was my pursuit in life, was to be the best, to have the most. And I think a lot of it came from the music that I entertained. When you listen to certain kind of genres of music, they put on this, they put out this vibe, that it draws you in to be like them. And
What were you listening to?
So I listened to a lot of rap music, and I aspired to have what they had and do what they do, not recognizing the cost that that it would bring, and the pain.
Sure.
So I guess if you want me to go more into detail of the, so I was into drugs and selling drugs, and I was climbing the ladder in the drug world. And actually, shortly before I encountered the Lord, I met a person that was kind of like the guy I was looking for since my early days of selling drugs. One way to put it is if I could have just got to him right away, that would have, at least in my depraved place, would have been the satisfying thing, at least so, or I thought that. But so I guess the way to put it is this person was brought into my path, and it appeared like all my needs were going to get met. All my pursuits, as far as the drugs, it was going to get real. I was getting to a place of possibly hiring bodyguards, and really, really up in the game, so to speak. And thankfully, the Lord met me on that road.
Okay. Before he meets you on the road, let me just ask you this. So, just to be clear, you're saying that you met somebody that you really admired as what you consider to be a successful, drug runner, drug dealer?
He grew out in California.
A supplier. Okay. So, and because of this, you were thinking about getting bodyguards because you were going to be going big time.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So that, I'm going to actually stay here for just a second. So really, this was going to be appealing to you because something about this was really giving you identity and purpose and making you special in some kind of way. It's a false power and false security.
Yeah, that would be a great way to put it.
Okay.
I think, so my identity was completely wrapped up in the drug world. I used to say often, I'm either going to die or go to jail, but this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Wow.
Because I had no vision. So backtracking a little bit, when I was in high school, sports was my God. And because I got introduced to alcohol and drugs, and I went full bore from the day I got introduced, it got me into a lot of legal trouble. And in 10th grade, I had to walk of shame to the principal's office, and the principal gave me the bad news that my high school sports career is over because of underage drinking and drug possessions and different things. And it was crushing, to say the least. It was a reality check, and it was the only thing that kind of kept me in school. It was the only thing that you had to get a D minus or better to play sports, and
The
so
D
that
minus.
so that was my I had very low goals, but
Very low goal.
whatever would keep me on the field or on the ice or on the court, that's all that I really cared for. And so then once that was done away with, I had no reason to go to school, and eventually I ended up dropping out of school because I just had no ambition to do anything. So that kind of opened up the door to have more time on my hands. Being a high schooler where all my other friends, or most of them, were in school, and a couple of us weren't. And so that opened up the door to having more time to, and meeting more people and selling more drugs. And so that was just the beginning stage. That's how it started, and then it just progressed from there. So yeah.
Okay. So you are in the place now where you've given up on sports and now it's going to be drugs. And you were actually making statements like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Yes.
Wow. Isn't that so interesting?
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that you had a number of incidents and run-ins with the police that now they're funny. They were horrible then. But why don't you share one of those? Because I really, it shows your mindset at the time, and it also shows your lack of fear. It's like you had really thrown caution to the wind.
Yeah. One in particular comes to my mind. There's many to choose from, but I was living with a friend. I was about 17 or 18. I think I was 18. I just turned 18. And this friend of mine, he got a drug charge, and I was living at his house, and we were involved. He wasn't actually involved in this nefarious behavior. Myself and some others were. We robbed a house and stole some computers and different items, and the police raided the house for these items because they were tracking them down. Somebody said something. I don't know exactly the full story on that. Thankfully, I never got in trouble for that scenario. But what happened is when they came into the house, we had some drugs, a decent amount, and I believe I was also on probation, so I didn't want to get in. I didn't want to go back to jail, even if we had nothing at the house that would, at least myself. There were drugs. They weren't mine. My friend would have went to jail, but so I had this heart to kind of protect him. So what I did is I grabbed the drugs that we had, and I climbed out the window of this apartment that we lived in, up this extremely steep pitch. And I was very, very intoxicated at the time. And so I get to the top of the peak of the roof, and there must have been 10 or 15 police officers shining lights on me, and I'm saying all kinds of vulgar things to them, and they really couldn't do anything. I mean, they were contemplating calling the fire department with their ladder truck,
Mm-hmm.
um, which thankfully they never did. But I was saying some quite, looking back, as you said, they were pretty funny. But it was actually short. It was actually by Dave's Pizza in Virginia, the apartment a couple of blocks away, and the roof was kind of high up in the air. So I saw a friend of mine actually going into Dave's Pizza from the place, from the view I had, and I was, and I was talking to him, and I was yelling, piggy, 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 you can't catch me. You know, I was just egging him on any which way, and I was like, uh, I was just trying to, I don't know, I was just trying to get under their skin, and they would shine lights on me, so I just turned my back so it wouldn't affect me, and then they would come in that angle, and it was just a cat and mouse game, to be honest with you. And um, I can't exactly remember all the things I said, but none of it was appropriate for this podcast, most likely. But eventually the police left. They didn't find any items because I took the drugs up onto the peak of the roof, so they weren't able to, find them. And then once they left and everything was clear, I climbed down the roof. I slid down. I almost slid right off of the roof because I was very intoxicated and the roof was very steep and slippery. Thankfully, I didn't slide off the roof. I made it into the house, and I told my friend, give me $20, and I handed him his drugs back. And yeah, that was just one. Another one that comes to mind was we were at a state hockey tournament in Twin Cities, and we had a lot of alcohol. We were underage, and when we got there, we unloaded all of our stuff, and I looked at the window, and I tried to open it, and it didn't open because there was a screw that would prevent the window from being opened. And so I'm like, all right, I'm taking this screw off in case I have to run, because I was on probation once again. I kind of lived on probation off and on, mostly on, for at least about 7 years. So anyways, what happened was we were being really loud, and there was a noise complaint, and I don't know how or what gave it away, but they kind of suspect what's going on at state hockey with a bunch of high school kids anyways. So the cops came to our room, and when I knew the knock. It was all too familiar. They kind of have the same knock. And right when they called, we were probably about 13 to 15 stories up in this hotel, and it was very cold out. I don't know if it was March, or I think it was March. And I was in a t-shirt, and I climb out the window, and I sit out there for a good while. I don't know exactly how long, but actually at that time, I dealt with suicidal thoughts most of my life, and that particular day, I was having thoughts about jumping off of the hotel balcony, which would have been my death because it was very high up in the air. And I didn't do that, but eventually I got too cold. I said, this ain't worth it anymore. I'd rather go to jail than freeze. So I climb back into the window while the police officers were still in the room dumping out all our alcohol and arresting people for drug possessions and whatever else they were doing. And I climb in the window, and it kind of shocked them, and they said, who are you? I said, I'm maintenance. I was just doing some work on the roof. And they said, sit down.
Go for it.
They didn't believe me.
It's maintenance. I'm doing some work on the roof. I tell you what, Tyler has a wonderful sense of humor, and even after coming to know the Lord, it's still intact. So we're grateful. The behavior's changed, but the humor is the same. This is really good. We're going to pause it. We're just going to take 1 minute break here for a little commercial, and we'll be right back.
Washed in the word, we've made ourselves ready. Spotless and pure, strong and steady. Vigilant, we yearn for your return. Our lamps are full and our fire burns. Ready to fight by your side. We will not run, we will not hide. We're your beloved, your warrior bride.
Okay, we are back with Tyler. So Tyler, you left off with something hilarious. Yeah, it was another one of your stories, and we just wanted to highlight those because your behavior, you really did not show much self-care. And you mentioned that you actually had been dealing with suicidal thoughts your whole life. Let's talk about that for just a second. So we know your ambition to be a drug king. We know all that, but there was clearly pain there. So what was the pain about? Where was the pain? Was it something that happened in childhood? If you could isolate what those thought patterns were, what would you say they were?
So, I don't actually remember much of my early childhood, but it was brought to my attention that I was a colicky baby, very colicky baby, and it wasn't so easy for my parents to deal with at times.
Oh.
And my dad in particular said a lot of things that he didn't mean. And I think that it put seeds of fear, just a lot of negative seeds, like rejection, things of that nature. And then, I think I guess I'm just gonna say it. It's not, my dad isn't. Sometimes we do things in a moment that we would never actually do, or say things in a moment, and I think where it was traced back to, at least from my recollection, was there was a time where I wasn't calming down for nothing, and he said that he was going to throw me in the oven because he just couldn't deal with it, just out of frustration and stress, and which of course he didn't mean. We say a lot of things we don't mean, but I think just those seeds that were, and then they were just watered throughout my life in different ways, and I just didn't like myself for a lot of different reasons. One of the other things is my brother had some things, like some handicaps, and so he was favored a lot. And I really struggled with jealousy towards him because of that. And it just, I didn't like myself. And so certain scenarios would come and it would just amplify the self-hatred and just, I'm reminded of, even as a young child, just waking up for school and seeing my dad passed out at the kitchen table when he's supposed to be going to work that day. And so just some really painful experiences, and it just got fed throughout my life, and
Kind of
and it
snowballed.
snowballed, and yeah, I think just a lack of identity, a lack of self-worth. I didn't like myself.
So no wonder you want to, especially if you're getting into the drugs and the alcohol, as so many of us have done, then you are able to escape it for a little while. But as we know, as soon as the buzz is over, then depression is already waiting at the door, the self-hatred, all the things. Okay, so let's just fast forward to the day where you're ultimately gonna to meet the Lord. Or actually right before that, because you have this moment you have talked about while you were being a drug dealer, regarding money, and you decided this is not worth it. Can you talk about that first?
Yeah, so I think to bring the full story, and we got to go back to the 2nd of July in 2011, and I was sitting around my computer desk getting high with some friends, and I looked at them, and I was like, "You guys, I made $4,000 today, and I hate my life."
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at me like, "What are you saying?" And I'm looking at me like, "What am I saying?"
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that the Lord put his finger on that to help me to see my life, how the depravity of my lifestyle, because I couldn't see it until then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I felt at least outwardly good about myself because I had what everybody else wanted, you know. But when he put his finger on that and helped me to see what I couldn't see otherwise, it opened my eyes to a different reality that I wasn't aware of. I feel like I tried to convince myself that it's gonna get better. Like you're not quite almost like I can't necessarily say I really had self-talk, but I think it was just more like an inner thing where I just like tried to convince myself like it's gonna get better. Things will work out, whatever, and it never did. It just got more stressful, more all of it. But that particular day was when my eyes were opened, and so then what happened was I was with some friends. So then we want to go to the next day, which would have been the 3rd of July. And I guess really to bring the full story, a few months prior to that, one of my best friends at the time, we did a lot of things together. We went to clubs, we went to games, I spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on this guy. And he set me up, and he told the guys where my drugs were, and he knew, more than most people, because we were really good friends. I would give him drugs to make money and off of those drugs, so he could have money too. I had this heart to try to help everybody else make money, not just myself. I ultimately was making the most because I had the most product in that, but I had the heart to help others. I helped, lots and lots of people.
The enemy's perverted that. He totally perverted that.
So that happened a couple months prior, and I don't exactly know how much was taken. It was probably somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000, maybe. I don't know exactly, but they did it in a way where the guy that came into my house was wearing my friend's sweatshirt. So it was kind of in a mockery, like, what are you going to do about this kind of thing? And as I said earlier in the podcast, that I was advancing in the drug world, and I didn't want these guys to try to affect what I was about to do. That was the main reasons on why I was contemplating hiring bodyguards. So then what happened was uh, I saw the one friend and then two other friends that they were all kind of in on the whole me getting robbed thing at the Evelyn Street dance on that 3rd of July. And they came up to me. I was with a group of other friends, and I kind of lost them. I was very intoxicated and whatnot, and they came up to me like we're buddy buddy. You know, they kind of, I was on my own. You know, it was a very, you know, it made me really angry that they had the audacity to come up to me like everything's all good when they know it wasn't all good. And so what happened was I saw somebody at the street dance that I knew. And I knew if he wouldn't do it, somebody else would. But I told this guy, all with the mindset of knowing that the drugs are going to increase, and the people I was going to start messing with, I can't come short on the money, or it's not going to be good for me. So what happened was I saw this guy, and I said, I'll give you whatever it costs. I have a safe full of money at my house. I need these two guys buried. And it was my ego. I was I was enraged and angry. You know, I would rather have the guys try to jump me and take my wallet, you know, instead of that. And so he's like, talk to me tomorrow when you're sober. This is serious. And so the next day is when everything changed. Independence Day, 2011. I went out to eat at a Ventures restaurant with a friend, and she got a call from one of my high school friends to go up to his cabin, and she asked, can I come? And he said, yeah, of course, you know. So we went up to the cabin. These guys weren't my everyday friends, so they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know about the thing that happened a few months ago, getting robbed. So they had no clue about that kind of thing that was going on. And so it's just 4th of July, everyone's partying, having a good time. It was that way outwardly, but for me, inwardly, I had this battle, these evil thoughts going through my head about the scenario the night before, and I was trying to drink them away. I was like, as said earlier on the podcast, I tried to black them out, numb them out, like forget about it. I just want to have a good time. We'll deal with that later. But that day, the more I drank, the worse the thoughts got. And it was just overwhelming to me. It just kind of came to a breaking point. And I decided that it was either me or him, but somebody had to go. I can't do this anymore. So I was contemplating on how I was going to kill myself, because I decided it wasn't going to be him, it was going to be me. And so I had all these ideas on what I was going to do. I was going to drive into the school or whatever, you know. A lot of evil thoughts going in my head. And then what happened, we were heading to a party that night across the lake. We got a call to go to a campfire at a friend's. We were anchored down, just a couple boats together, and so we picked up the anchor and we were taking off to the party. And I was sitting on the back of the boat on a cooler, and by this time I was double fisting half gallons of alcohol. I was chasing one with the other, trying to drink myself to death. And so when my friend that was driving the boat hit the gas, I fell off of the cooler I was sitting on the back of the boat. And as I was falling off of the cooler, I had a thought come to my mind: if I flip back in the water, I can end it all. And it was the way out. It was the answer. And so what I did is I flipped back over the edge of the boat and did a somersault over the back. And when I hit the water, I had a thought come to my mind: if I get water in my lungs, I'm going to drown. So I thought for a second. I said, all right, this is it. And I just took in water. And I sank to the bottom of the lake. And in the bottom of the lake, I put my arms out like Jesus did on the cross. And I said, God, take me away. I don't want to deal with this pain anymore. I had a lot of pain I didn't know how to deal with, including the things I just discussed. And So what happened was my body started to float up and my ears start ringing real loud like I'm having a seizure. And I get a vision of my life. It was like my whole life flashed before my eyes. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And the way I describe it was the bad and the ugly far outweighed the good. And as I'm seeing this, I have this tremendous guilt of all the things I did. And as that's happening, I heard a voice that wasn't in my head say, "It's not your time." And I knew I just said, "God, take me away." Then I heard, "It's not your time." And I said, from the deepest place of remorse, repentance, I just said, "I'm so sorry, God. I will live for you." And that was when I was completely engulfed in light. I was in a cannonball position looking upwards. And this light is just extremely bright, but it's not like the sun. You can stare into it. And as I'm staring into this light, it's like I'm being completely consumed by love. And it was like love just completely consumed my entire being. And then what happened was my physical body actually floated up to the water. And when I fell out the boat, originally the three of the guys on the boat jumped into the water, but I sank like a rock. And so two of them were way too intoxicated to be trying to swim and find me. And so they got back on the boat. The third guy, he worked later that day. And so he wasn't in quite as rough a shape as the rest of us. And so my body surfaced and I was face down in the water dead. And he flipped me out onto my back and he was trying to pull me to the boat. But as he's pulling me to the boat, he's starting to sink. So he got scared because I was dead weight trying to pull it into the boat. And so he let go of me and got back onto the boat. And then so what happened for me next, I had an out-of-body experience. Don't exactly know when in the scenario it happened, but I left the realm that we know as we know it into the spirit realm. I don't know if it was heaven. I don't know. I assume it was. I don't know though. But I saw the most incredibly vivid colors. And the trees and the flowers and everything was so alive and so beautiful. There's no words to describe it. The brightness of these colors were beyond any color I've ever seen. And I remember thinking to myself, the colors in particular really got my attention because they were so different than the colors that we know. And then also seeing the flowers, it was like they were breathing. You could see everything was full of life. And I was just so overwhelmed by this. And the peace and the love and the joy that I had. I'm just like in awe. And I remember thinking in my head, I never want to leave this place. And as soon as I thought that, I heard a voice say, "You're going back." And that's when my spirit came back into my body. And as I said, I was laying on my back when my friend left me to get onto the boat. And so it took me a while to realize, like, I'm laying on the water. Like, because what I just experienced was something I've never experienced before. I was so overwhelmed. It was hard to even move. I was just in, like, so I looked to my right, though, and I saw I'm laying on my back on the water, and I looked to my left, and I saw the boat. I'm like, I got to get on the boat. So I swim to the boat, and I hop up on the boat, and I start sharing with everyone what happened, and they're freaked out, as you can imagine. My friend driving the boat, he thought he hit the gas too hard and made me fly off the boat. So he was dealing with tremendous guilt, as you can imagine. He just thought he had,
Sure.
And so when I get onto the boat and I start sharing with them everything that happened, they couldn't deny something miraculous happened because there's no denying it. And as I'm talking and sharing what happened, they're like, "You need to sit down and have a beer. You're scaring us." And this
And at this point, you're sober.
I'm completely
You're
sober.
totally sober when you come back,
sober.
right.
Yeah, when I came back, I was completely sober. Everything.
That alone is a miracle,
Yeah.
even without dying.
Yeah. And so what happened next kind of shocked everyone on the boat, but this righteous anger came up from the inside of me. And it wasn't my language. What I believe now, it was the Holy Spirit, that I had no clue who he was or anything like that. But he started condemning those thoughts like that, like, sit down and have a beer, you're scaring it, like that. It was like, no, that's what got me here in the first place. That's not the answer. In a sense,
Sure.
there was a lot more wisdom attached to it that I knew it wasn't my language, because my language was slang words and cuss words, not the wisdom that came out of me. I remember I would look behind me like, who is this? Like, because I knew it wasn't me. But I didn't know, anything beyond that. So we, the night kind of ended, and so I wake up, or I ended up going to stay at my parents the next day. And my friends that actually lived next door to my dad. So when I woke up and I went next door, and I brought all the alcohol I had left, and I started drinking with my friends, and I was kind of like rallying them, let's go, it's like 8 a.m. or something, and we drank all of my alcohol, and by noon that day we made 5 liquor store runs. And I think it was about 12:30 the next day, after, like I said, 5th of July. Everybody's passing out because we were consumed a large amount of alcohol, but I could not get drunk. I literally did not get drunk. I went and played basketball. I got a call about 12:30 to go play basketball. All my friends were passing out, so I was like, well, you guys pass out. I brought a cooler of alcohol to the court, and I literally had beers on the sidelines, like somebody would if they would want water, right?
Sure, yeah.
And I drank like I still had pain, but all I had was joy. And the Lord would not allow me to get drunk because it was supernatural. I just couldn't get drunk.
Yeah. And
so then the next day would have been the 6th of July. I got a call from a client, or he wanted some drugs. And so I go and I start weighing him on the scale, and this voice speaks to me. And it said, you don't have to do this anymore. I took that away from you. And with childlike faith, I said, wow, I don't have to do this anymore. And I moved out of the drug house I was at. I left my safe full of money there. I actually hated money. My friend had to convince me to not throw my safe full of money in the river. It was supernatural. The hatred, it was like the opposite extreme. I hated what it did to me, how it made me, and I literally left my safe open with thousands of dollars in my bedroom with 4 other people living there, and I did not care one bit. I grabbed the little bit of belongings I had and I moved home, and it was like everything changed after that.
Yeah, let's talk about that for just a second. Really good. So first of all, you're down and you meet him down at the bottom of the lake, and you didn't go through the sinner's prayer. You didn't even mention Jesus by name. Is that true?
No.
Had you ever had any prior introduction to Jesus? Had somebody ever taken you to church? I mean, what was your background there as far as understanding?
My background was very, very limited. When I was growing up, I had a friend that they were Lutherans,
Mm-hmm.
and in order to stay at their house on a Saturday night, I had to go to church with them on Sunday. But
Fair deal.
yeah, it was worth it to me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really, I didn't take it in. Didn't pay. I don't remember paying attention to what was being said or anything like that. One thing that the I'll put it this way: the first genuine Christian I met was actually in jail, NERC. It was a work farm. And this particular guy, he invited me to a Bible study. And because I saw his character and his life and just the way that he was so generous, you were allowed like $30 a day to spend, and he would spend all of his $30 on everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just go into the movie room and buy everyone snacks, and he was just,
And this is all before the lake.
This was all before the lake.
Okay.
And actually to this day I've been trying to track him down. Last week I got a hold of one of his relatives that is hopefully going to relay the message to him, because I've been trying to track him down for the last 15 years because of the impact he had on my life. And so he wasn't a typical inmate. This gentleman, he was a businessman, and he was away on a business trip, and some man at a restaurant tried to take his wife into the bathroom and rape her.
Oh gosh.
And this man was very, very muscular and very big guy, and he messed with the wrong guy's wife, to say the least. The guy, he almost beat him to death. And so because of his clean record, he got a short sentence. Most people with any kind of record probably would have been in prison for a long time for what he did. But so he wasn't a typical inmate that I was used to. But he invited me to this Bible study. I've always thought there's something about the Jeremiah. I don't remember really, what was said, but his life was a witness to me, and it attracted me.
So would you say that when you were in the lake, it was his God that you were crying out to, so to speak?
That would be a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, that's good. So I want to highlight this about, just how much it really is a matter of the heart. It really is. And that you were responding, whether you understood it or not at that moment, to the invitation, and for you to get to the place where I just give up, you were almost too late, because you did it at the bottom of the lake instead of saying, take my life. You could have done that from the boat, but you went all the way down.
Yeah.
And I really think that speaks to, you maxed out your rebellion. You maxed out your self-reliance. You maxed it out. You couldn't go any further or any closer than to be at the threshold of death with no turning back, because your lungs are now full of water. You're intoxicated. You're at the bottom. They probably couldn't see you, I would imagine.
No.
So you really did. It's like it was a full surrender. You had no other recourse. You weren't putting your big toe in. You were literally hitting rock bottom.
Yeah.
And so when you said that, he's there, and he is responding to what you said.
Yeah.
And that's what he, so to speak, took to the bank.
Yeah. I believe
it was just your childlike response. And because you had a total surrender, that didn't mean you understood. Clearly you didn't understand. But because you had such a childlike surrender From that moment, you were his. You were now his responsibility. And he equipped you with what you needed out of your ignorance, because we're all ignorant till we're not, to be able to make it over the next little while when you came back up. Whether it was them saying, sit down, have a beer, relax, and you bringing correction there, or to you drinking and you can't get drunk, or to the fact that now you don't have to have, the money thing. And then his voice to say, you don't have to do this anymore. You don't have to do this anymore. And for you to, I like how you said it so childlike. Yeah, I don't have to do this anymore. Just those simple moments of agreement. And through quick obedience, and that's a word people don't often like, but we don't want to think of obedience in terms of legalism. Let's just say you didn't mull it over. You're just like, yeah, I don't have to do this anymore. So that quick agreement, the Lord was able to just maneuver you easily in how in a moment as a young person, you might not have had any head knowledge at all at that point about the Bible, about, how God would say to live our lives or anything else. But through the power of the Holy Spirit, your appetite is changed. Yeah. And your human body and its desires are squashed. Now that's a living God. That is a living God. This has really been powerful. Your testimony, there's more that I want to go into, because we know, you pursue the Lord, but the enemy's going to come in. There's going to be some confusion, some misunderstanding, and there's even a visitation to hell. So we want to go even deeper, but for today, this is where we're going to leave it. This is really powerful. And I know I am so grateful for what God has done in your life, because this isn't Tyler now. This is Pastor Tyler. You have come completely over to the other side, and that same generous heart and generous spirit you had as a drug dealer, you now have as a hope dealer. Yeah. And I believe that comes from Pastor Mary Peltz and in her great work down at the Bridge Outreach, that they're now hope dealers, and that's definitely what you are. So I just want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we're going to be back with part 2, maybe part 3, depending on how long it goes, with Pastor Tyler and this incredible work that the Lord has done, and the fruit, because there's so much fruit that has come from it. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.